So we're doing double duty this evening as the Tigers are up 3-2 heading into the fifth inning, I believe it is. Fifth inning right now as they're starting off a road trip here against the Astros. I am Rogelio Castillo. Beside me is Brandon and Chris Brown.
Cool.
Brandon and Dave, of course, from Bless You Boys. Thank you for joining us this evening, Brandon. We were talking beforehand about what exactly to talk about the Tigers because they swept the Orioles. I mean, we can talk about the Orioles just... there's, like, for example, Christian Walker hit a home run. Tigers didn't spend on Christian Walker, but the Orioles didn't spend it at all.
Yeah. We had a long chat kind of during the whole series about whether or not Brandon Hyde was on the hot seat and stuff. And I mean, he probably is, but I don't know. I mean, it kind of feels like Mike Elias is the one who kind of dropped the ball here. Like, they just kind of didn't take advantage of where they were at all to push in and get anybody. Left the pitching a little bit thin. I don't want to be too cocky, but it feels like the Tigers are better at developing pitching than the Orioles are. It's funny how fast these things can turn. We've joked about the White Sox for years and how, the juggernaut that they built that lasted, like 5 months basically. So it could run away from you quick. The vibes over there just don't seem very good. And that's how it goes when you're losing. But there's also that, it's hard for some of these guys to break through. Kobe Mayo has just been spinning his wheels at AAA and, doing well there, but he hasn't been able to get through. Holiday has been back up and down a little bit. It just doesn't feel like there's, a very good vibe there. I don't know if guys feel like they're getting stalled out or quite what the deal is, but they had it set up to just, be really good for a long time. And they just kind of have just been like, let's not really push in too hard here and make those final moves at all. We'll just kind of take our chances. And so far it's not looking too great. It's a long season, of course. We don't want to get too cocky just because the Tigers are 18-10 and they aren't, but right now it's not looking very good. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they I don't know. Who knows if there was ever any actual discussion, that the fans last year, and I wrote an article about it, was like, the Scooble to the Orioles, right? Because they had the best farm system. And but then, the Orioles clearly did not want to part with anybody big because of who they went out and got. And again, who knows if Scooble was available. But, like, I don't know, if you're the Orioles right now, you could probably use Tarek Scooble, probably more than Jackson Holiday and Kobe Mayo. And Samuel Basayo, like, those guys are interesting, but they're not helping you that much. But
these windows can open and close, pretty quickly. I mean, their farm system was so stacked, and obviously they've still got Basayo, they've still got Mayo down there, like I said, spinning his wheels a little bit, and the rest of the farm is still pretty good. But Gunnar Henderson's struggling. Adley's been banged up. It's just one of those things. I assume they'll get it together and come on strong at some point this season. But when the opportunity is there, you want to strike. And I know I kind of whined about Alex Bregman as much as anybody about the Tigers like put all their eggs in that basket and then they let the basket get away for less than Alex Cobb cost. But here we are, and we have one Spencer Torkelson, and nobody really anticipated that happening, and so it's kind of made the rest of it moot. So maybe something great will happen to the Orioles, but they just kind of feel like they kind of got to where the Cardinals have been for so long, and we're just like, okay, we're comfortable here. Maybe we'll get hot and win sometime, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, right now they had two more players go on the IL, so they have Jordan Westberg, who is going on the IL for a left hamstring strain, and Gary Sanchez, who's out with right wrist inflammation. So they have had to call up Emmanuel Rivera and Maverick Hanley. And so what sucks is you're talking about the pitching is Grayson Rodriguez and Colton Cowser were both transferred to 60-day IL. So you talk about and they're getting guys from... They're claiming, they're trying to do the waiver wire thing and try to claim guys and see if they can plug in and play because I think they called up another pitching prospect too. And I just can't think of who that.
Yeah, they sent down Wolfram for a reliever. I know that. I can't remember who else they brought up though. But
and that young dude who pitched against the Tigers was technically a prospect. I think he's a little bit older, but he's 25, 26. But no, they there were some decent arms on the market last year, right? Like, you didn't necessarily have to go crazy. Nick Pivetta, we just saw him go nuts against the Tigers. Severino was out there. Like, Jack Flaherty, they probably didn't want to reunite with him, but there were some solid arms, and they settled for Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel cocky almost. Like, yeah, we can just bring anybody up, and they'll be a good starter for us. And look at it, like, yeah, they got pummeled by the Tigers. That was you don't see sweeps of doubleheaders very often, just because it's just the way baseball is. And nope, they got swept and then lost the next game, and it wasn't very competitive. So I know they made their own bed, and I watched them lie in it.
And the Tigers stranded a lot of runners in that doubleheader too. It's not like they just cashed in all their chips. They had chips all over the place, and they were just spilling off the table. So yeah, it was pretty imposing victory, I thought, from the Tigers side of things. I'm sure they were feeling good about themselves last night, flying it out to Houston here.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention during the first game of the doubleheader, it's not that Baltimore wasn't competitive either. They were getting hits. It's just they weren't getting the most timely hits possible, and so that was the thing where I was down there the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, and watching when Hinch was talking to us about the possible pitching chaos at the time. We kind of, in the back of my mind, I kind of knew Montero was going to start game 2, but I mean, he bulldogged that start for sure, and it was a lot of gritty performances from the bullpen too. Will Vest is starting to get more see my vest, starting to get more familiar and comfortable in the closing job, but. It's a thing where, too, even with this kind of segues into Colt Keith struggling right now. Gleyber Torres to me has been exactly what has been advertised. He's just been going out there having some really good at bats. He's not the speediest guy in the world, but was really making some smart plays on the bases as well. But he's just been. I'm really, at the time when the Tigers did it, I was kind of questioning why a little bit. Not question necessarily. It made sense. It's a bat that you can plug in your lineup, no problem at all. But with Keith struggling, even defensively, Torres has looked pretty solid out there. And so I'm is he Gold Glover? No, but he's been more than serviceable. So I don't understand where people are saying that he's been this terrible defender in New York the entire time.
He was also kind of had the reputation of making a lot of mistakes on the base paths, and maybe we'll see that at some point. But he's slotted right in there, and the Tigers are just running wild, first to third. They're not even trying to steal bases that much, but they're just running in everyone's face right now, like, yeah, throw us out. And so far that hasn't happened very much. And yeah, I mean, Gleyber just gives you a very professional at bat. It's just kind of awkward because we didn't expect this from Torkelson. So you kind of figured, okay, Keith is moving to first. That really puts Torkelson behind the 8-ball. But as it turned out, it put Keith behind the 8-ball because now he has nowhere to play. Yeah. And I don't know if that's in his head to some degree. If having to switch positions and then not having it work out is just kind of piling up on him a little bit. But it was just it was sort of a target of opportunity. Like they needed a right-handed bat. Torres was there on a 1-year deal. They probably had to basically guarantee him that he was going to play second base full time. And it kind of is what it is. It might not look like a great developmental move, but we're past the developmental point now, trying to win. And so, if Colt can't get it together and has to go down to get regular ABs, they may have to do that. But Torres has been a breath of fresh air. He just, seems to give you a good at bat with runners in scoring position all the time. Whereas some of the younger Tigers, even like Riley and stuff, still kind of get a little too aggressive, give things away first pitch sometimes when there's runners on. And get behind in the count. So, he's just kind of been a rock solid dude. And, if you've played in the New York media market, you're not going to be fazed by too much. So he's got a lot of experience. He's been in big games. He's seen tons of ink written about him, positive and probably even more negative. And, he just seems to fit right in with everyone.
Yeah. And he's been a good teammate. There's just been talk about in the clubhouse too, just how well he's fit in. And again, just talking a little bit on Saturday with the press, just as a matter of just going in. He's got a locker right next to Baez, so there's already a kind of good synergy there already. So it's been a very good development for the Tigers as far as having the best record in baseball. In the big thing too, the run differential. Now we'll get to all the minor league teams in a second, but the Tigers, SeaWolves, and the Whitecaps all have the best. The Tigers have the the best in the American League, rather.
Yeah.
Erie has the best in the Eastern League, and West Michigan, and I think it's West Michigan's not even close. Like it's really a wide gap there. Where I think it's Akron is second closest in the Eastern League, I believe, but not by much.
Yeah, and the Whitecaps, maybe lost their best hitter.
Yeah.
It's got that lineup could be absolutely bonkers if and when McGonigal gets back and when they promote Bryce Rayner. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's fun watching good offenses in the minors and in the big leagues. It does feel like the Tigers' offense, to a certain extent, is like I don't know. It's not that it feels fake, but it just feels like at some point, like it still feels like that magical run last year where they're always getting the big hits when they need, and we've seen they don't. Obviously, like we mentioned Pavetta shut them down. We saw Simeon Woods Richardson shut them down earlier in the year. Like you're not going to be on every game, but they just seem to come up with the hits. Or your big home run here, or a big knock there from anybody and everybody. It's McKinstry, it's Baez, it's Torkelson, it's Green and Carpenter hitting home runs today. So Dingler's been hitting the ball really well. He swings at everything, and eventually they're going to stop throwing him strikes. I think he's got a couple of strikeouts today. So, but yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. This is not what I expected. I expected kind of a 500 team this year. We talked about heading into the season about how tough their schedule was in April because of all the former playoff teams and 500 teams they were playing, and here they are, best record in baseball, best record in the American League at least.
Well, and we talked a lot about how much losing Parker Meadows was going to hurt them, defensively, and how much they counted on that for their defensive identity, and they're playing really good defense, and they're still moving everyone all over the place. This all kind of comes back to, is AJ Hinch a freaking genius? The answer might be yes. Because just everything seems to be coming up perfectly for them. When they're struggling with a starting pitcher, they still manage to kind of grind out long at bats, put a lot of pressure on them, and then the starting rotation's been so good that it's just really hard for any team to separate from the Tigers. They never feel like they're out of the game, I'm sure, because they just usually aren't. They aren't giving up more than 3 or 4 runs a night until they get into the late innings, and you decide whether it's going to be Vest and Canely or whoever, or whether or not it's Kenta Maeda time. But Kenta Maeda is only pitching because they're ahead so much. So
yeah,
that's a good sign.
That is kind of wild.
We just saw Javi Baez, clang one off the face of the Crawford boxes again for a double, just last inning. So, and there's some things going on there. Like he's changed his stance, he's moved up, his swing is different, he's closed off. There are some tangible changes that look like maybe something has kind of clicked for him now that the hip is healthy. We'd love to see him hit 20 home runs, but I'm not expecting any of that. Like as long as he's productive at all, take the win. So.
Yeah, and it's going to make, we touched on a little bit with Colt Keith. It's going to make for some interesting roster decisions coming up in the next, if and when. We haven't heard any updates really on Vierling and Meadows. Everybody was supposedly down there in Lakeland doing, live BP, and the pitchers who are injured are pitching to the batters who are injured. So you would think that we're going to get rehab assignments. It could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could be another week, but we're probably 3 to 4 weeks away from Meadows and Vierling coming back. I don't know actually when they put him on the 60-day? I think it made like the end of May.
Yeah, Meadows can't come back until like the 26th, I think.
Yeah. So about a month from now.
But yeah, you probably will see rehab assignments because Vierling seems like he's almost ready. Maybe Meadows takes another week or two because he was completely shut down in certain ways for so long. I guess he was still hitting, but I don't know how you hit that well with a dead right bicep. So you think it would take a little bit of work to get that back and firing.
Go for it. I just wanted to say, Colt Keith's playing time has been dwindling even without those guys. It's hard to see him sticking on the roster, which as much as it's a bummer because we really believe in him and think he can hit. He may need to just go and get regular pitching for a couple, 6 weeks or whatever, like Parker Meadows did last year, right? Like that was such a bad start and he looked so lost. And, we didn't think that was him, right? But we had seen, we hadn't seen quite enough of him to know, like, I don't know, was that just a fluke? And then he came back and you're like, okay, this seems sustainable, at least a little bit more sustainable than I was worried about. And I think Colt Keith is going to hit and will eventually hit for power and be a good hitter. But, it's tough out there when you get 2 at bats in like a 3-game span.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make adjustments and it's just not easy. Big leagues is tough. And so once these players start coming back, Keith could go, Young could go, Malloy could go back down. These are guys who are helping for the most part, but they can't play them all.
Yep. There's just no room, and you've got Andy Ibanez and you've got Zach McKinstry, doing their particular jobs that they don't really want to assign anywhere else. So, yeah, I mean, somebody was dogging me yesterday a little bit because I kept bringing up the fact that Colt Keith had, like from May 1st on last year, Colt Keith was like a 115 WRC plus. And he was like, yeah, but he sucked down the stretch. I was like, well, you can chop this.
What?
Stuff. Well, I mean, in fairness, like he did kind of fall off. He stopped hitting the ball as hard and he stopped pulling the ball. Like I haven't seen Colt Keith pull a ball hard, since like last July, it feels like. So there is some stuff going on there, but it's still Colt Keith. He's still pretty young. He won't be 24 until I think August or September this year. And, Colt Keith is one of those guys who came out of the COVID year, which we've seen like with Torkelson, maybe the lack of, the reps, the amount of time off kind of hurt those guys more than, some other classes. And then you also had Colt Keith, missed half a season with the shoulder injury, so he was, he got to the major leagues quickly. I think it's fair to say, he wasn't like a 20-year-old superstar necessarily, but, they pushed him right there. He signed the deal, they put him right in. Whereas I kind of thought maybe he would get like a month in Toledo to get, kind of heated up. So, it's not the end of the world if Colt Keith has to go down and try to work on some things. You see his bat speed declining, which is, to me is just indicative of him like being caught in between and really shortening up and being really tentative. But he's still walking. He's not chasing out of the zone. His zone discipline's been better. So it's just one of those things. Like if the Tigers weren't where they are right now and they were still just, like a 78 win looking team, you just play him, until his his swing decisions really go bad. And it looks like it's in his head. I would just let him run. But right now, you just can't, and they don't really need him, even if he's going decently, and that's another problem. Like it's just hard to get him in the lineup. So maybe when Vierling comes back or whoever else, the 4 to 6 week plan in Toledo might be the way to go.
Yeah, honestly, I was, until probably about a week, probably about 2 weeks ago, I was like, no, don't set him down, and I'm the first to admit this that. I mean, because every time Colt Keith struggles, you're like, see, Roger? You're the biggest Colt Keith guy. I still am. And I still believe in what I see. But if he has some time in Toledo, is that a penalty against him? I don't understand why we have to beat up this young man so much when he's struggling. I mean, it's like he wasn't annoyed at the next. I think people are waiting for the next. I think people are expecting the Tigers to have a prospect to come up right away and do things because there's other organizations to do it. And the Tigers still haven't done. I mean, admittedly, they haven't had a guy like that. And that's okay. Look, it's unfortunate he's struggling, but for God's sakes, I mean, it's just enough with he is terrible. It's just, come on.
It's also really, really rare for guys to come up and just be good right away. Like even the guys who come up and like a lot of times the guys who are really good right away end up being no good. Like they get figured out and they can't adjust. Like you were saying, I would feel okay with him struggling like this if he were getting to play every day and like could get his way out of it. But it's just got to be hard you're not playing as much. And I don't blame the Tigers, right? They're going out there, they're trying to win. They're playing every game to win. That's the mantra there. And if he's not helping you, he's not helping you. I mean, Hinch is batting him third today. Like that's a sign of confidence there, or a sign of he's going to get pinch hit for later with Andy Ibanez in a big spot. But they're going to keep doing that. But once some other players come back, he's probably on the chopping block for now.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe he will get it going. Last April he was god awful. We all saw that. Like he was unlucky. It's not like he was striking out a ton, but he wasn't hitting anything hard, and it was kind of similar where he just looked like he was taking kind of short little hacks at the ball and trying to just serve singles and get himself going. And it kind of looks like that right now. But people were pretty patient with Riley his first year. They've been patient with Spencer Torkelson for 3 years. Colt Keith is every bit as good a hitting prospect as those two guys, or at least maybe you didn't like him as much, but very close. So it might take a little bit of time. It's just that the Tigers are in a different place now. Yeah. Not that anything is so unusual about Colt Keith not tearing it up in his second year.
It does crack me up though that people are more patient with Torque and Green than they were with Keith. It's just especially people that are coming out of the world. Oh, see, I told you about Spencer Torkelson, guys. We're just impatient. Like again, who cares? You know what? Yeah.
I don't know if I can watch the game because I just keep reacting to everything because Riley and Torque just both ripped drives that got caught. So
Yeah. No, I'm same thing. I had to put that presentation up for the Weber report going. So yeah, I got but it said I had the game day app on my phone. That's why I keep looking down on my phone. So that's why I was going to look for that. But yeah, let's start with so Toledo. By the way, is finished 6-0. They Gabe Alvarez. Congratulations, Gabe Alvarez. It's just your team did not go in the toilet this week. And prospect wise, by the way, this is the first time we've done a show in a long time where there's been not one single comment yet. I mean, people are watching right now. I'm looking at the number. Oh, there it is. There it is. Dookie Pickles. As soon as I say that. But you know what, Dookie Pickles? I just wrote an article. I just wrote an article about Javi Baez. I love that name, Dookie Pickles. I know it's early and fans are hesitant to say it, but the whole fan base owes Javi Baez an apology. It's been solid. No one's talking about it. Look, but the bottom line is the reason why I wrote about the article is I saw something on. Let's start with Forbush. There was a YouTube channel that discussed the mechanics. Discussed the mechanics of Javi Baez's swing. He is now less in the box. He was 27 inches deep or something I noticed on Baseball Savant. He's much more upright in the box. He doesn't slouch his shoulders anymore, and he's whipping through the ball faster. He's had 5 multi-hit games, as former Tiger broadcaster Matt Shepard pointed out, that he didn't have that until I think 80. He didn't have that at all last year. So there's something to be said about that. And Baez, to me, has always been a good ball player. He's a smart player. He knows how, sometimes he does little flashy things, but he is getting. I mean, it was funny. There's somebody, I forgot who's. Somebody said this. Somebody said that. He's batting 8th or 9th in the order. That's why he's going better. He's always been batting 8th or 9th in the order. Yeah. Not that. But Jay Bone says we don't owe him an apology. Well, I don't care who owes who. I mean, he's doing better. He's performing. But I mean, the bottom line is, I noticed it. I think the beat writers have talked about this too. The one thing I don't like is fans have said he doesn't care about the game. That's ridiculous. That part, come on.
I mean, I think, it's perfectly fine to be mad or frustrated with a player who's struggling that you're paying a lot of money to. Right. That's just natural. But yeah, some of the character assassination about Javi Baez has been pretty gross around here. I know people are frustrated, but look at Javier Baez's life story. The guy's overcome tons, and tons of pressure to become this kind of a player and have the career he had. So, he is a dude that, deserves some respect. It's not like he's just out there and he doesn't care because you think he looks flashy or he's kind of a hot dog. Why shouldn't he be a hot dog? The dude has the most gifted hands, we've seen in 30 years. But to pretend like he's a bad teammate or that he doesn't care or he's got his money and he doesn't give a shit anymore, all that stuff is a little bit gross. That's just the stuff where, people get mad and spout off. But, it's sports. He's making plenty of money. Some of that comes with the territory and, it just is what it is. But the problem was just that he wasn't playing well and he was injured, and he didn't go get it fixed. So I've been pleased, obviously to see this. I don't know if it'll hold up. He has shortened up his swing. He's not selling out for power. You can go look for yourself and see that his bat speed and bat length, swing length are both down. That's okay because he's just lining singles and doubles. And as long as he can keep doing that, eventually the power will probably show up as well. But, for now, we're just happy to take what we can get. And when you get Meadows and Veerling back, maybe he goes into, more of a full-time kind of real bench role. But right now you can't take him out of the lineup. He's doing everything.
Yeah. I do like what Matt Wood said. He's not,
he's not Rendon. Yeah,
Rendon is basically said, I don't care. He's basically mailed it in at this point. So let's start with Toledo. Yeah, so Toledo has been it's been a season for the Mudhens, but they come back, they sweep Omaha, and now they head to Worcester. Am I saying that right, Chris? Is it Worcester?
Worcester.
Worcester. Okay, if Jeff Pontus of Baseball America was here, he'd definitely be correcting it again. But they did it again. Here's the thing about Toledo, and you guys can agree or disagree with me on that. Outside of some pitching prospects, there's not. I mean, Hayu Lee they did this without Hai Lee even going 1 for 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his one hit was a double, I think, in like his final at bat of the week, and he looked absolutely relieved. Like he pointed to the heavens and was like, he's like, finally. So yeah, I mean it's been tough for him out there. So
Yeah,
they didn't.
It's really been the scrappy squad. I'm kind of expecting Trey Cruz to move up there because now Mendoza's up there. It's kind of a gritty veteran minor leaguer team at this point.
So Altuve with the 2-run bomb. Oh boy! All right. Well, it's going a little. Yeah, it's supposed to unraveling a little bit in Houston, but no. As far as like pitching goes, to Matt Manning. So I did get some clear. So Emily Walden was down there, and with Montero going up, we were told that Manning was going to go to the bullpen, but because Montero moved up, they kind of had to switch things around a little bit, so they were back and forth. The idea is still there to do that, and he pitched really well over the weekend. So Manning's still trying to find his bearings a little bit, but it was the one pitcher that we haven't really talked about a lot, and Chris and I have noticed the numbers are getting better every start, is Wilkiel Hernandez, who has been, as you pointed out here, Chris, 2.67 FIP. And that's saying something in Toledo, right? I mean, Toledo is a place where bad defense and ballpark factors play a role in that. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I can't say that I've sat there and watched him pitch. I've seen him pitch a billion times in my life, but I haven't watched him in Toledo. But he's getting results. And like, as you said, like we saw Madden and Montero and just about everybody else, Herder, they all got blown up in Toledo last year. So if you're pitching well in Toledo, it doesn't necessarily mean you could do anything in the big leagues, but it makes me raise my eyebrows.
Yeah, he's also a guy that, you could have seen getting released, sometime in the last year or two, even really. And the Tigers have stuck with him. So there's something there enough that they like in the curveball and the fastball combination where I assume they still kind of target him more as a reliever, but he's doing well so far. I'm not exactly, expecting much from him, but it's just nice to see, one of the younger guys who's sort of been around the system for a long time, like kind of finally kind of punch his way to, up into the upper levels with success. So, we'll see if it's going to take a lot of convincing probably, but so far it's nice to see him having success there. Yeah. And as you said, like last year, just about all of our prospect starters there really got their butts kicked when they moved to Toledo. So nice to see him get off to a good start though, for sure.
Yeah, you're right, especially because it took a while for them to even get to that point where they had some sort of consistency in Toledo at all. But that, I mean, as far as that goes, it wasn't Riley Unruh stole the headlines because he was doing a walk-off pitcher and the winning pitcher, or a walk-off win rather, and
yeah, that was the dumbest game, man. It was. What did they win in the 12th inning, 13th inning? It was an extra inning game, and Unruh for the second time in a week had to come in and pitch in high leverage.
Yep.
And Riley Unruh is an infielder by trade, but somehow he gets them to put the ball in play on the first pitch every time. It got a bunch of outs, and then he came up, and they were down to their final out, and I think they worked 3 consecutive walks to tie the game and then win. It was just a really ridiculous. I think Omaha may be the cure for Toledo. Omaha is pretty terrible.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens when they go to Worcester and face the toughest offense in the International League.
Yeah, it should be a real different test. Yeah, this week for sure. But just an odd game. Didn't he pitch? I think he pitched the 10th, 11th, and 12th.
That sounds right. Yeah,
as a position player.
Yeah.
But yeah, such as minor league ball sometimes. But it's nice to see. Obviously, getting right against Omaha is what they're there for. But I'm sure Gabe Alvarez wasn't real thrilled with the start there, and obviously, the Tigers have been kind of burning through their infielders and outfielders as usually happens. So there's been some adversity to deal with there. So yeah, I'm sure they're feeling a little bit better about themselves now.
Yeah, and speaking of feeling good about themselves, by the way, is one Dylan Smith who. We just did a video breakdown, and we're gonna put a spotlight on. We're doing some of our breakdowns. Smith is being one of them, and then we have Hurtado coming out tomorrow. Both these guys, and then we're gonna be doing a couple more later this week. But I just wanted to point out something to you. This is what Chris put on the sheet said 98 with a question mark. Yeah, that's 98 legit, like legit 98, and. Smith he hasn't allowed a hit to righties yet. Again, this is extremely early, but he looks like he's throwing to both quadrants, both sides of the ball, or both lefties and righties very well, and just able to challenge hitters on both sides of the plate with his fastball, that kind of like the curve, like old fashioned curve. The slider's been looking really good. And Brandon, I'm telling you this right now. Like I know it's early, but him going to the bullpen, because I did a bullpen piece over the weekend because I thought what Hinch said was interesting. He said that, I'm paraphrasing. There's 97 right there. Paraphrasing a little bit, where he said that he had to have a conversation. A lot of the guys in the org had some tough conversations about them changing the rules a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it made me think about Smith, and made me think about a couple other guys. So I'm like, I'll just look into some of these pitchers a little bit. And as far as like him, Smith hasn't just been able to stay healthy. That's his big thing. He has not been able to be healthy at all. Everything has gone to Erie. It's just been a disaster. But I think this is the long-term role for him, and it showed in Erie's bullpen with now Sanchez, who there was a weird moment. I think it was Saturday night or Friday night or Saturday night. I can't remember which one it was, where the rain. It was Friday night. It was literally pouring, and it's one out in the ninth. Campos slides, almost falls, making a catch him right. And then as the rain's letting up, Andrew Graham comes out, and they're like, they put the dry stuff out there, and like, hey, look, Sanchez can't even get a dry spot on the ball to, and the catcher, I think Thayron was dropping the ball and everything. So then they put the game in rain. They put the tarp out as the rain's dying down. Yep. It was the stupidest thing I've seen in a long time. And even the Harrisburg guys were like, okay, what the hell are we doing here? So.
Yeah, they have trouble, managing those situations at the major league levels. So yeah, I'm sure like, double A, umpires like trying to get the weather report and convince both teams of what they need to do is a whole, different kettle of worms. But yeah, Dylan Smith, he's just been erratic. Like you said, he's been injured. He's one of those guys like Wilco Hernandez, who's been around the system, it feels like forever. And, we finally saw some little flashes in the Arizona Fall League where he was pumping 98, but then he'd go right back to like 92, 93 and be wild. And it just, it kind of feels like they've been working on enough things that maybe it's starting to finally kind of click and come together for him. Always had a really, pretty good arm, always had a pretty solid slider, and they've sharpened the two of them up. I don't know if the split is, going to come along, but if he gets that going, the Tigers might have another relief prospect there.
In the videos, we didn't really see any. From what I could tell, I didn't see any of the off-speed pitches. Any change-up, split, whatever. But yeah, if he can keep the velocity, if he could throw a few more strikes and get the breaking balls, then definitely an interesting player.
Yep. And then Yosber, we've all liked for quite a while. I mean, it's a pretty big fastball breaking ball combination. Little short strider, but when you're throwing 97, 98, that's fine. So yeah, he's another one who could be really good. It's just those little notches of command they need to tick off before they can get a look. Did you guys think it was interesting the way they kind of brought up like Bailey Horn just like briefly, and then now it's Sean Gunther? It kind of feels like they're getting these guys a paycheck, and they also want them to work with like the major league staff for for like a week, and it's like, okay, now you're probably going to go back down. I assume they're going to call up Chafin, in the next couple days, because Chafin can opt out on May 1st. But I guess we'll have to see. Gunther's been pretty effective, and when Horn is throwing strikes, that's pretty electric stuff too.
Yeah, he has that really good sweeper, and the thing is about Horn, it's always been command with him. Command when he was with Boston, he's just a matter of putting it together consistently. And the couple times I did see him in Toledo, he has some really good stuff, and it does play well. Where I think it has good late life on anything he does. And so I think for right now, Toledo and Erie both have really good bullpens. I mean, they have some really experienced bullpens, and I think what Gunther went out there, I think he struck out 2 yesterday. Yeah. Like he just looks like a different, like he even looks a little more different than last year, even hair-wise too. Like by the way, he shaved his head, and I didn't really recognize him when he came into the locker room over the weekend, but he's a guy who I think also presents like a different, like they're both lefties, but they both, all three rather, present different angles to him. So it's really interesting how the Tigers have that ability, and plus you throw in the righty and Lee, and you have a completely different looking bullpen than you did last year.
Yeah.
If you think about it in the grand scheme of things. But one name I wanted to bring up that has been getting requested, and he won Eastern League Player of the Week. And Chris and I have, I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm just trying to change my tune a little bit about Max Anderson, who has been a beast. So it's just been hitting the ball hard. Exit velocities are up. But there was one thing, Chris, you mentioned over the weekend in Discord that it was something I didn't consider. You were talking about he was hitting more, he's pulling the ball more, correct?
I haven't looked at the numbers, but he did pull a couple balls, which was something he was just nothing but oppo last year. Let me see what it is this year.
Especially in the air, like
Yeah.
nothing in the air to the pull field last year at all. Yeah.
So he's even across the board right now, 32% pull, 35% center, 32% oppo, and I think he was more like 50% oppo last year. I have to go check, but I mean, he's a guy that I honestly I did not really believe in because of that, because of the batted ball profile. He didn't produce a ton. He's not a guy who walks a lot. He's pretty aggressive, but he has really good bat to ball skills. And there's not a ton of defensive value. I think he's gotten better on defense. We've discussed that. But if he's going to hit like this, then they'll find a place to play him, right? Like you're hitting for power and average at Double-A he's at 23. It's not crazy old. It's I don't know. It's an encouraging development. I still don't really know. As I said in there, that the profile is kind of similar to Justice Bigby, who basically hit a wall as soon as he got to Triple-A because they could just pound fastballs in on his hands, and he couldn't do anything about it. So I am kind of curious what Anderson will do when faced with the same challenges, but it's hard to complain about what he's doing so far.
Yeah, and the other thing is that his fly ball rate is what 8% higher this year, and
Yeah.
and that was a big part of it. He's got that. He's kind of worked on it to a degree, but he had that really hunched over stance, really slashed down on the ball. And he did hit the ball hard, some last year, but everything was on the ground. And yeah, I think, by mid-season or so, I was kind of writing him off like, all right, he is kind of just like, Big B-ish territory, but he does have more raw power than Big B.
Yeah.
And, he's, it's 60 raw. So, he could eventually turn into some kind of a first baseman. Maybe even, kind of a corner outfielder that you don't really want to play out there very much, something like that.
Well, I will say, I mean,
but we knew what he had to do, which is start pulling the ball and start hitting the ball in the air more. And so far, he shows some signs of working on that, and he's been mashing. So yeah, that's
in terms defensively too. I will say this is 9-day improvement. It really is. Like the first week I saw him when I was out in Erie, I was talking to the broadcast team about it, and the glove was rough. I mean, he had some plays, some routine plays that he just botched completely. But then in the last 2 weeks or so, watching, Chris and I will split duties, and sometimes I'll just get stuck watching, or not stuck, I don't want to say that, but like I like watching Double-A baseball because one of the things we were talking about in the Dylan Smith video, I wanted to point out that Chris, the strike zone has been atrocious. I mean, there's been, it literally, like, that's why sometimes the walk numbers, you're like Dylan Smith has a couple, like he has 5 or 6 walks, but then you look at the strike zone and you're like, oh, well, crap. I mean, that's just, it's awful. But,
Jackson Jobe last year was a classic example in a bunch of starts. Yeah.
Great example. But Max Anderson has looked really good. I mean, going to those left, he looks a lot smoother than he did last year at West Michigan. And there was one play where, he went really extreme to his left and he made a really nice dive and catch and throw to first base. And so, it's good to see. And it was something that, again, this is why prospect development is so weird, because then here we were talking about Campos, and then Chris points out, and the walk rate is good, but yeah.
He's turned into a wacky player this year. I don't know what's going on. It seems like he's, everything's back on the ground again when he hits it, but like he's never shown anywhere close to this kind of patience or plate discipline. And part of me wonders if he's just like, I'm not gonna swing at anything. Let's see what happens. But I have seen him battle in a few at bats and work nice walks. So, I'll take it as a good sign for now. But I really would like to see him hit the ball in the air and hit it hard, because he has a lot of raw power, and he's going to need to do that if he wants to go any farther than Double-A.
Yeah, he might be in a little bit of Keith mode right now, where it's just like, I'm not swinging at anything unless it's like right, it looks like it's right down the middle to me.
Yeah.
This kind of speaks to the whole, system and what we've seen the last couple of years that I think is so great that, a lot of times teams will figure something out and you'll start to see like, okay, they're better with this type of pitcher. It just feels like the Tigers have gotten better at everything, and they kind of keep getting better because guys keep developing. Long after they're 22 and 23. Like we look at the jump Spencer Torkelson has taken at the major league level and at the AAA level to a degree defensively over the last year. I mean, Torkelson was a terrible defender on ground balls, and people kept bringing up, well, he picks the ball and he scoops the ball really well, which is important. But for an infielder, that's supposed to be kind of just part of a day's business, is to be able to collect slow, 80-mile-per-hour one hoppers from across the infield that are coming. It's not a ball in play, for God's sake. So I never give him that much credit for the picks, but he's done the work. He's throwing better, he's doing it all better, and I don't know. There just seems to be kind of a lot of that where guys just keep kind of getting better, and they, as a result, they get more time. I pointed out in a McKinstry article last week that there aren't that many like just cut and dried utility players that actually, get this much time and get to stick around. It's usually young guys who haven't quite earned a full-time role yet, or veterans who are kind of aging out of playing every day. It's hard to just be like a bona fide utility guy who doesn't hit for power and manage to last 5 or 6 years in the major leagues. And because he's gotten to see a lot of major league pitching, and, they made some adjustments last year to help him line the ball a little bit more instead of grounding out so much. And, all of a sudden we have, Tony Gwynn here.
He's lifting the ball a lot more. He's lifting the ball a hell of a lot more than he did last year. When Jerry and I when I did the article on McKinstry, it was one of the things that was instantly pointed out, similar to Baez, in a sense he's putting there's more line drives going with McKinstry, and just taking the ball where basically he's not trying. There's no more pop-ups to left center. I mean, that was left field. That was always his thing, and now it's kind of cut back where we saw some bullets on Saturday, and it was the right field corner where even foul, they were almost fair, and he's able to do that. So, speaking of adjustments, by the way, Jaden Ham has been struggling to make an adjustment right now in Double A right now. 4 home runs in 15 innings. But Chris and Brandon, you guys both know, but we talked about this. In order for Ham to get past Double A, he has to. I mean, in addition to velocity, I think Ham's got the stuff. But this is where the reliever risk comes in. I mean, comparatively speaking, to somebody like Garrett Burhan, well, like it's funny too, because I've talked to John Verberger about this, and he thinks Burhan's going to be a reliever. Of course, everybody thinks that for some strange reason, people think that also Tyler or Troy Melton's going to be. And by the way, Hinch loves Troy Melton, wants Melton here now. That's how much they like Troy Melton. But there's just always this thing that's like that. Until you can tell me otherwise, I think with Burhan and Melton, I think they have possibilities. But is this really too early to freak out about Jaden Ham?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Ham obviously could use a better changeup. Jaden Ham could stand better command. Jaden Ham could use a little bit more velocity, but Jaden Ham is still pretty good. He had some home run troubles last year. He's just kind of got that profile where, and to a degree, Reese Olson was like this a little bit too, where he could carve you up with his breaking ball, but if he had to rely on his fastball too much, it would eventually get whacked, or he'd eventually hang something. But that's just making too many mistakes. That's all that is. So hopefully, Ham will kind of settle in. But he just got here. Melton's the one you'd kind of look for to like move to Toledo pretty quickly. Obviously, I'm kind of a Melton bandwagon conductor. So I'd like to see him get up, and I'd like to see him work with Fetter and Lund and those guys this year, preferably in the first half. So maybe you do use him out of the bullpen, down the stretch, because that does give you a guy who out of the bullpen can throw 98, 99. But in Ham's case, I'm kind of just letting him vibe right now. It's still early. He just got to this level. We knew he had some things to work on. There was some debate back and forth about whether or not he's a bona fide top 100 guy, whether he's a 50, whether he's a 45 plus. And he's just in that little area right now where he's got to take a step developmentally for things to start clicking for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's useful to remember that Troy Melton had home run issues last year too.
Yeah.
I think so. A lot of that with both guys is command, right? It's keeping the ball out of the heart of the zone. I do think with Ham, he probably becomes a little predictable, right? You're getting a lot of fastballs and a lot of curveballs, and like you said, Brandon, occasionally when you throw that many breaking balls, you're going to hang a couple. So if you're kind of guessing or sitting back for one of these, you could probably guess a fastball up or a curveball down and launch one.
Yeah.
He's still getting the strikeouts. But yeah, this is, he's in Double-A to get beat up a little bit and try to adjust. I do think there is still reliever risk there. I think Burhan is a reliever too. I've said for a long time he reminds me of Alex Faedo, just kind of his delivery and the fastball slider.
Very slider heavy. Yeah.
yeah.
Really good slider.
Yeah, and then I don't know. Jake Miller refuses to walk people, which is fun. He gave up some runs, but he's like, nope, throwing strikes.
Not giving in.
And Montalvo, I did not watch. I'm not a big fan of Harrisburg's camera angle. It's one of my.
Oh my god! It
least
was like
favorite.
literally like you're like whoa.
It's not as bad as Bowie.
Oh no,
but
Boo's worse. Yeah.
But I'm not. So I don't tend to cut up the starts from guys in Harrisburg just because it's not great.
But
Montalvo,
the same way too.
yeah, Montalvo had a two-thirds of an inning outing last week, and this week he goes out and pitches 9 innings and does pretty well. So that's encouraging to see. So yeah, I mean it's still kind of the most fun pitching staff in the system right now. If you don't count, there's some fun guys down at low A, but not necessarily as prospect heavy.
I don't know though. I mean, as we get to West Michigan, Chris. I mean, West Michigan's bullpen has been outstanding. I mean, they split the series with Dayton this week, as they are in the middle of a 2-week road trip swing right now as they head up to Wisconsin. I'm not sure where they play in Wisconsin, but either way, it's this time of year where it's still not exactly warm yet, so it's not like it's gonna be fun playing in Wisconsin. But either way, this bullpen to me is kind of intriguing. The whole intriguing, the rotation's intriguing, but some of the arms on the bullpen, and one name you mentioned earlier was Ashman, who just no one can figure him out, Chris.
I mean, that was what we heard about him coming out of college. At Utah or whatever. He's like 91 to 93, and a lefty with kind of a slightly lower arm slot, but he's a tall dude, and it's just an invisible fastball for some reason. Hitters don't pick it up. He's got a decent breaking ball, but yeah, I mean, he's another guy that I think would be fun to see him at higher levels to see if this can continue, because I can't necessarily explain it.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's going to overpower you, but he's sort of like gives off like herder vibes when you see him, and then they just cannot track that fastball. And I assume better calibers of hitter when he moves up, we'll have a lot more success. But right now, he's just kind of getting up there and throwing it by people, throwing a decent amount of strikes. Sorry, I'm distracted by the fact that Trey Sweeney just threw away a double play ball, and
two of them. Another throwing error. Yeah,
he made back-to-back errors. Yeah.
I just turned the game off. All right, I'm good.
No, that was the same thing. I looked down. I'm like, oh, come F on, dude. I mean, there's a ball on Saturday too where lately he's been having the yips out of nowhere. He had to throw. I think it was in the second inning or first inning. I can't remember exactly when. Yeah. But he short hopped it to Torque.
Yeah, totally routine. Yeah, totally routine play too.
Yeah,
it's what we talked about with Keith, man. Is that this gets into your head and it affects everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Sweeney's not swinging a bat real well either. Better than Colt in some ways, but overall not. So
you don't need this is where right now Verling coming back at the right time is a good thing, and this is where also at the same time shortstop wise to the depth. I mean, Andrew Navigato ain't it either. I mean, we can go on and on about that, but we'll continue on with West Michigan, and
you just plug Javi Baez back into shortstop, his natural home, and then his bat probably will go to hell or something. But
no, the thing is too is like people. I suggested something about Baez going back to short or something. He's terrible at short. What are you smoking? At third base, he's actually like outs above. I mean, depending on how you look at the metrics on outs above average, he's a +1 at third.
Yeah. I'll take Javi, anywhere defensively. I don't worry about Javi Baez that much. I'm sure Hinch feels the same way. He's not quite as quick as he used to be. He still, makes some mistakes as well. But I mean, it's Javi Baez.
I like what Matt would hear. That's a nice Major League 2 reference there. For those that's a classic reference there. Like that. Good call there, Matt. But getting back to West Michigan. So Jose Briseño is a beast. Just I like what you put there, Chris. 132 WRC plus, sick.
Well, that's not what I meant, but you could.
Oh yeah, I know what you meant, but like,
Yeah, you could call that. Yeah,
Works both ways.
yeah,
yeah. It's he's a guy that it's basically like he could look overmatched or like look confused. He's his 3-run homer he hit the other day was like he swung and missed I think twice, and then they threw him tried to do it again. He's like nope. Yeah, he's just bombing the ball when he gets an opportunity to, and it's fun to see him. Because he was a guy that we knew last year that he hit the ball really hard. And then he got hurt and he was out for a long time, and just wanted to see him continue to do that and put the ball in the air a little bit more. And he has, and I think he's been a little bit unlucky with some of his contact. He's a slow guy, so he's not going to beat out a lot of infield hits or anything like that. But he's hitting the ball hard right at people. So definitely a big fun bat to have in that lineup. And when you've got a guy ahead of you who's on base at a 48% clip, it helps.
yeah.
I don't know, man. I try not to flip out about Max Clark because I felt sort of the same way at this time last year. Where he just was not like he's playing very well, but he's not doing the things I want to see him do. And it's like there's not a huge difference between Max Clark and Seth Stevenson right now, except Stevenson's much faster, and he doesn't walk. Clark is walking a ton, but neither of them are hitting. Like Stevenson hit his second home run this week of the year. Clark has one, and he hasn't really threatened any others. He does not hit the ball in the air, and he doesn't hit the ball hard really. And I don't know if it's just his approach. He's just going to want to be a slap hitter, and you want to slap hit and get on base. That's fine. I wish if that were the case, I wish he would try to steal a little bit more.
Yeah,
looking at it earlier.
Run. Yeah,
he's been on base in high A. I think we looked at 90 times this year and last year combined, and he's tried stealing 8 times. He's 5 for 8. So what I don't know is if that's like an org thing, if that's a Tony Cappuccilli thing specifically, or if Clark just doesn't feel comfortable running. But if you're not going to hit for a ton of power and you're not going to steal a lot of bases, it's going to be hard to add value that way. But again, if you're walking 27% of the time, and that I think is he's definitely a guy that I think needs to move up and get challenged more because his eye is good enough that he's not going to really chase. And in high A, they're not throwing him enough strikes. So,
and when they do, he can just serve singles to left field all day, and just kind of live on base. But I have to agree, like I haven't seen him enough to have a real strong opinion, but his defense hasn't really come along that much yet. Like he's got speed, but he's not like blazing fast, and he will still get turned around out there. And we just like to see him, pull the ball and in general look to handle stuff in on his hands a little bit better. But again, he just turned 20.
Yeah,
and I keep reminding myself that he's not the top prospect in baseball. He's a good prospect. We should be happy about him, but he doesn't really stand out to me in the way that McGonigal and Bryce do overall, especially at the plate, obviously. But even in the field where Max Clark, that was supposed to be kind of a surefire center fielder, it feels a little bit Derek Hillish, where he's not quite as fast as it seemed like he was going to be. Doesn't run as good of routes as he, in theory should. But you have to remind yourself he's very young. He's just getting started. He's got a couple years before we have to get too worried about this, and that we see the Tigers developing guys through some of these issues already. I don't want to be, we're going to skip to Lakeland for a second, but I don't want to be mad because Bryce Rainier hits everything to left field. But Bryce Rainier does is hitting the absolute snot out of the ball. So it's a little bit different ball game there. And we just don't see Max Clark like getting off that A swing that often. It looks like this is kind of the player he wants to be. There's a little bit of like Wenzel Perez vibe to him a little bit to me, and where it's just like,
are you talking about early Wenzel Perez?
Yeah, I'm just not going to strike out. I'm just gonna punch the ball a little bit. It's not like Wenzel was like spraying line drives to left field relentlessly. He was more of a rolling it over guy, but he just didn't look like he was trying to do damage, and that's kind of how Max Clark feels to me a little bit. Like he's going to play like that traditional leadoff hitter role that never really 100% existed the way people think it did.
It's I don't know, like again, I feel weird because I feel like I'm criticizing all the time, but it's just like it's not. I don't think it's gonna be that monster that people dreamed on, right? Like that, he's gonna be a Corbin Carroll, is like gonna go 30-30, and he's gonna play Gold Glove defense and center. He's like right now he looks like He's going to hit 8 home runs and steal 12 bases and get on base really well and be a solid left fielder who plays every day because he can handle left-handed pitching. But so that's somewhere between like an average big league regular and maybe slightly above average, depending on how well he gets on base and how well he hits. But yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know. Again,
and also he doesn't. He also, I guess, the other thing too is like physically he's not. There isn't that much projection left either. So it's not like he's like doing all this and he's sort of a skinny beanpole where you're like, okay, he's going to flesh out and add a lot more muscle and that's going to change something for him. He kind of looks like physically almost a finished product, like a dude who just kind of was an early bloomer in all that regard. And we'll just have to see if he can find something in his approach to or whether he needs like actual swing changes here to start doing some damage. But
yeah,
I don't know.
But he's already done some swing changes already. It kind of reminds me of a little bit.
Yeah,
go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say he changed his swing in high school. He changed it before last year. He changed it before this year. Like it just and the results
the same.
It's like I feel like he's got to be stronger than he like what he's doing. It just feels like he doesn't barrel the ball. But then he'll hit like screaming liners down the left field line. You're like, okay, whatever. So I don't want to be too critical of him. This is a guy who's playing terribly well. He's got a 48% on base percentage, 480. So
he's just not presenting.
He
just doesn't look the way that you would expect like a top, future superstar center field prospect to look.
But you're right. I won't wait till it gets to Erie. B. It kind of reminds me of a little bit. I know this is kind of an old comp. Brett Butler, the former outfielder for the Dodgers,
and that would be awesome.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. If you look up Brett Butler's number, I think career wise, he's almost at a 50 WAR for his career. But he was he was an all-star. He was a solid center fielder, and
stole a lot of bases.
Yeah, stole a lot of bases, and he was a very disruptive force when he was in Cleveland too. So I don't know, like it's. For me, I'm going to wait and see until the weather warms up a little bit too, and I'm just gonna. But as far as like how he plays the outfield, it's a little different than what we saw with Riley Green, where Riley Green had a little more instincts. You could saw, but I don't know. I think Clark's doing fine. I mean, right. I think if you look at the way the West Michigan lineup is constructed, he's playing exactly the role that he needs to be, which is a leadoff guy. Really, I mean, if you think about it.
Yeah.
He's scoring a lot of I shouldn't be complaining. It's just like it's not the player that people thought they were getting, I guess.
Not yet. And I mean, I just think it kind of comes down to, for all of us, there's a couple other guys that stand out more to us. It's not that Max Clark is doing badly, but the amount of ink and like hype and people asking about him isn't really commensurate to the fact that McGonigal's a better hitter, Bryce's a better hitter. All those guys look like they're going to be more valuable. Tyron's having some struggles with the breaking stuff as expected, but he's doing damage. We'll just have to see how it kind of plays out here. But it's kind of been the same issues sort of all along. So we'll just see if he can make an adjustment sometime this year. And
2 months from now he might be knocking the snot out of the ball. I don't know. It just so far you just a little frustrating in one particular way.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, once Michigan keeps rolling on, though, they are in first place. They're scoring runs regardless. They scored 10 or more runs again. The stat that stands out is the amount of home runs they hit as a collective. So last year they hit 15 total. I think they're like 17 or 18 for the month of April. They're going to be finishing the month depending on the next couple of days go, which is the most they've had since 2022 or 20, I believe, for something in that case where they had like 22 home runs for the month. So they're definitely, and their batting average too is like 270 range, which is for the Midwest League that stands out because usually 230, 240 seems to be the norm, and they're hitting above their punching weight quite a bit there. So one of the things I also want to mention before we move on to Lakeland is Castillo. Rainer Castillo's velocity's down a little. His velocity's down a little bit, right, Chris? I mean,
in Lakeland it was consistently 95 to 97. He would be in 94 occasionally, but so far in that game the other day it was mostly 91, 93. He touched 94 a few times, and he was throwing a lot of changeups, a lot more than I remember seeing out of him last year. And beyond that, his breaking ball looked more like a curve. Like they had gotten rid of. I thought his slider was a really nice pitch, and then this is like a low 80s kind of humpy curve. I did not like it at all. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe they're really working on him to throw more changeups, and that's affected the slider, or it's just early and cold or whatever. But yeah, the early signs there are a little bit of a regression, at least visually.
Yeah.
The results have still been okay. So
yeah. I mean, he's still throwing enough strikes and stuff, but yeah, the velocity was definitely down, and yeah, I didn't see much in the way of the breaking ball that looked good. The changeup has some potential, still pretty firm though. But yeah, we just don't know. Maybe he's on orders to just throw a crap ton of them for a while and see if he can get his feel for it.
Yeah, so don't want to make too big of a deal, but
yeah, we're not. Yeah, it's like I said, it's still early, and it's next thing you know, maybe he pumps 98.
Right. He looked more like Marcano to me. Than he usually does, where it's kind of like, okay, we're back to like seventh starting, sinker baller type guy who just gets weak contact. So yeah, we'll see. It's early, of course.
And speaking of what's early, jumped up a little bit, but it was early. We were talking about Owen Hall kind of having a couple rough starts. He's been looking more comfortable in the rotation now. Lakeland splitting the week with the Marauders, as they are. I mean, they're even with the record. Lakeland's a fun watch. Like I honestly I really like watching Lakeland play. It's a team that no matter what, they're never out of the game. They're always. Yeah. Woody Hayden made a really good catch. So Brayton was threatening the other night. 2 runners on in the 9th inning, and Hayden made this insanely good catch. I'll have to find it. But it was just an example. He's been filling in for Jackson Strong, who ever since he got hit in the head, he has not played, correct?
Yeah, he's on the IL.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you said it. Like they come back pretty frequently. They stage comebacks or get guys on base. Their issue is that occasionally their bullpen just completely melts down, which is not unheard of in low A. You see other teams do it. That one game, was it the Friday night game where I think like 6 runs scored with 2 outs, and it was just walk. Yeah. Happens. These guys down there can't throw strikes all the time. But yeah, like this was the Bryce Rayner week. He was the player of the week. This was, we posted a lot of clips and pointing out how hard he's hitting the ball, and everybody was like, "What does this dude ever hit anything under 100 miles per hour?" And it's like, well, yes, he does, but he hits the ball very hard, very often, and then you see everything else. Like the batting eye is, I think, better than we expected. I don't know if it's better than we expect, but he's not chasing anything, and he's young. We haven't seen anybody. There's nobody down there with the command to pound him, on the inside with good fastballs to see what he's going to do, because he is, as Brandon mentioned earlier, like everything's to the opposite field with velocity, and there are worse things in the world. But you could exploit that if that's your approach, and you can get him with a good slider under his hands right now, or a good changeup out away. That's what you see from young hitters, but. It's hard not to get super excited and giddy about him because of the way he's hitting the ball, the way he's playing.
2-1 to Bryce Rayner.
The speed, the arm strength, the defense,
out to left
it's
field.
all there.
Going back is Bishop. He's at the warning track. He's looking up and watches it fly.
Yeah,
2-1 to Bryce Rayner.
On the sound, it wouldn't.
Is hit high.
There we go.
It's just it's incredibly easy power to the opposite field. He's basically hitting the ball like Briseño, at least in terms of exit velocity, but he's a shortstop.
Yeah, and he's fast, and he has a huge arm.
Yeah. So I have no qualms with anybody saying like, hey, you know what, this dude is the best prospect in the system. It's early. I would not go that far just yet because, like we said, a lot of different things can happen, and he needs to keep getting better as he goes up the ladder. There are similar players like this who we've seen in the past who couldn't continue to get better. Colson Montgomery is kind of the most recent one, who was a top 25 prospect, a big-bodied shortstop that looked like he was going to stick at the position. Some people thought he'd go to third. He was hitting well, and he got to AAA basically, and that was it. He can't hit anymore. Yeah. That's the Hayden catch right there, isn't it?
Yep, this is a really good catch here. It's just
that was a heck of a catch.
Yeah.
It's a 400-foot fly out.
He's a fun player. He's like the guy that every minor league manager wants on their team. Just like you can put him anywhere. He just plays ball. Knows what he's doing everywhere.
He's the Mendoza. He's the Mendoza.
Yes, I was just about to say that he's Mendoza, but like center field, shortstop, second base Mendoza instead of like hide him at second or third in the left field. yeah, he gets on base, he runs, he's pesky. He doesn't have any power, but whatever.
Yeah, you know what I'm liking about Rayner. I mean, there's a million things, but he's got that like hip block where he like kicks out his back leg
Yeah.
like a bowler.
Yeah,
to stay through the ball and get that extra extension. And yeah, he just I don't know. He looks like a major league hitter to me. You know, he just stands out so much compared to everybody else around him. Even with Montoya hitting it well and Hurtado's been hot. When he gets in the box, even if you're not paying attention and don't know who it is coming up, it looks different for sure.
and in this particular series, it was really fun and informative because Bradenton has Connor Griffin, right?
Yeah.
Who was the other possible top 10 high school player last year, and he's super athletic too, but he kind of looks like Gage Workman.
Yeah.
Where it's, when he hits the ball, he hits it hard. He's stealing bases all over the place, but he's also striking out a ton.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Rayner. It's just like, no, he's not going to chase. He's not going to swing and miss much in the zone. And if anything, he's a little bit passive on pitches in the zone, which we see with like McGonigal and Clark too. And they're worse things to be, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a pitch that you really like, you don't have to swing at it. If you trust yourself to hit it with 2 strikes. So, yeah, it's pretty fun to see, and just want to see him do it for more than 10 games.
He has a little bit of, I mean, he has a little bit of that like long limb thing where you kind of do, it's not like anybody's been really challenging him that much inside anyway, but when people can, is he going to be able to turn on those pitches and get his hands inside them?
Yeah.
You can see the future, issues that will come up that he'll have to conquer. But but right now, I mean, anything out over the plate, he's just extending on it and just absolutely smoking it seems like. So.
Yeah. And I do feel bad a little bit for poor Frenier Bermontia, who was also a pretty fun shortstop, second baseman guy who's got some surprising pop, and went out and had a great week.
Hit the ball hard all over.
Yeah. More walks and strikeouts, steals some bases, hits some extra base power, and everybody's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
His enthusiasm. Get out of here with your cool enthusiasm and making a great play every time. Like
he's a lot of fun too, man. And he struggled for that first week, but since then he's been a really good player. And I think, I mean, that's a fun 1-2 punch down there for sure. So I'm looking right now at Connor Griffin. He's hitting .270 with 4 homers, 4 doubles, a triple, 11 steals already. But 25 strikeouts to 6 walks in 19 games. That was 18 games. I'm sorry.
There was I think it was Wilson that struck him out. And speaking of Wilson, by the way, I was cutting up his start. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary that like indicated like his velocity was there too. And so I don't know. Maybe it was Chris thought maybe perhaps it was a blister or something because there's just nothing that would seem noticeable about his start.
The old cracked fingernail that well, you're fine, but you can't pitch with this stupid thing. Yeah, and he's been fun to watch because, as we talked about it, like when he's throwing strikes, which is not all the time, like, it looks pretty electric. And the slider at times looks really good. And it's just wild enough to, the hitters are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you see what they saw in him finally. Like last year, I was like, what?
This is a mess last year. Yeah, for sure.
And so you see the potential there now. It's still very far away. And it's same with like Owen Hall. Owen Hall is making slow and steady progress so far, and it's nice to see. He's a very young pitcher, so
yeah,
it's just fun to see those young guys out there.
Did Riley Green hit another home run? Is that what happened?
I don't know. I know the game is well out of hand at this point. He did.
Yeah.
A 2-run homer for Riley Green.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So maybe the game is not well out of hand. They're back within 3.
Ooh.
Can we get
strikeout
swinging?
Can we get Josh Hader versus Ibanez with 2 guys on here somewhere?
That would be fun.
That'd be nice. All right, I'll have to put the corner there. Thank you, J-Bone. Appreciate the update there. Yeah, because if I have the game on one of my tabs, my stream will be completely killed. But that's why I have the Game Day app, and I haven't looked down because I'm not trying to get too distracted. Because right now there's a DM war between one of our colleagues, so it's a really bizarre thing.
What?
Yeah.
Where?
I'll tell you guys about it later. But one of the things that the return of Gabriel Reyes is back. I mean, he was throwing nothing but strikes, but he was also getting hit quite a bit. The first 14, 15 pitches were all strikes, but they were also he was getting clobbered a little bit. But again, there's been no rhyme or reason why he just something came out of the FCL and boom. I think it was something, maybe he was in shape or something. I'm not 100%. But when I talked to Terry, who does all the photography down there in Lakeland, she asked him, and he's like, didn't really say much. So,
Yeah, a little bit mysterious there.
Yeah. You know, and he threw a bunch of strikes and got it paid for it a little bit, but that's kind of who he is. I don't know. Like we mentioned, the pitching down there is pretty fun, if not all necessarily prospects. Like RJ Sales has some interesting aspects to him. They seem to have added more of a slider to his arsenal. Like he was a big kind of 12-6 curveball guy last year. He still throws that occasionally, but he's got a slider and will throw a change up, and he's touching 94, 95, 96. So it's mildly interesting.
We'd love to see oh yeah, go ahead. Yep.
No, you go ahead.
I was just I wanted to go to Minton because that's
Yeah.
what I keep like keying in on. Like, can we get this guy a bigger fastball? Because that slider seems to be doing work down there.
Yeah, one walk. Walk.
He's just attacking him, and there's just a ton of swing and miss going on. So yeah, it's been fairly impressive. He still doesn't really present as a guy who pops so much that you expect him to move fast or anything like that. But yeah, he's got some stuff. I'd like to see him move up and see kind of what happens.
Yeah, that's the CHU there is for call him up.
Yeah.
Because it's people always say that, but it's like, okay, clearly this level is not necessarily challenging him, and maybe he's not a high priority for you, but you can put Reyes in the rotation and you can figure out something at West Michigan, but I don't know.
Yeah,
you would be correct, Jake. Daytona does have a horrible camera angle.
Oh God, yeah.
So Daytona, it's gonna be a tough watch this week down there. For anybody that's watching the Florida State League. But that was a nice play there by Andy Baez, by the way, showing off his range. He's in there now for Jace Young in the bottom of the eighth inning, 8-5 Astros, for those who are not watching. But thank you for everybody who's been commenting and letting us know what's going on with the game. So, but yeah, that is it. The FCL starts on Monday. I'm pretty sure, the Complex League starts Monday. We did see some action. We talked about this earlier in the week. The Tigers and Phillies were playing they'll probably play again this week at some point on that channel.
Yeah, definitely. They played the Blue Jays. So it's like in those, in the Complex League, they play like 3 back-to-back games during the week, and then they always have Sunday off, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fun. Brandon, you missed that episode. I don't know if you went back and listened or watched, but there was some fun stuff in that, including Wilberth Mendez, the pitcher, who immediately kind of jumped off the screen at us just because he's, kind of high waisted, 93 to 96 sinker with a flash and a pretty good breaking ball and throwing a ton of strikes.
Oh, nice. No, I didn't. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he pitched 2 innings, and I was like, this is randomly interesting. And then we got to see kind of a glimpse at some of the players who've come north this year. Jose Dixon, I think, who else was up? I don't remember. But we saw, like, Brady Sherkonik exists. He had a double. Jude Warwick made, like, 4 really good plays on defense, including, like, a spinorama throw. I'm like, oh, man, this is fun. You can't see them as well because they're on the little tiny background screen, but they won 2-1, and it was like a quick game where they threw a ton of strikes, and this is rookie ball. I'm like, man, this is really filtering down all the way through the system. Oh, and the other interesting guy was Omari Daniel.
Yeah, the former Twin shortstop is a pitcher now, apparently, for the Tigers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they claimed him or signed him as a free agent back in like November or December, and I was like, why? He was a 14th rounder as a shortstop like 3 years ago, and the Twins cut him because he was a 175 career hitter. I'm like, what are they doing? And I'm like, yep, sure enough, he's a pitcher. And it's like he touched 93 a couple times, I think, but he flashed an interesting breaking ball. And again, it's just like
he's only 20.
What we were talking about is like, they're just making these guys interesting pitchers, even if it's not going to go terribly far. Like they saw something, they have him throwing strikes. And it's a pretty easy delivery. I'm like, I assume he also pitched in high school, right? Like usually that's not just let me dip my toes in this. But I don't know. It was a fun. We cut up every pitch from that outing, and then all the like fun offensive plays. So if you want to go take a look, and I encourage other people to. And otherwise, just wait for the complex league to start, and we'll try to get you some stuff. So yeah, May 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If there's one subject in the system, like developmentally, that I wish I could talk to like Lund or Feder about, it's how they were sorting these guys out and getting them to locate, because it just feels like they've got something with like just teaching them little cues or working with their natural tendencies, like some combination of those, which is what you do. But the detail of that must be really interesting, because they just seem to be, everybody who comes into the system gets better. They get optimized a little bit more, even if they don't have the stuff to make it work. Everybody seems to get better, and it's kind of a testament to Garco and the entire staff. So, things are definitely different these days.
I still think that there's what I like about when we've talked to them about is essentially they will go back to them and say, there's a pitch you threw in high school or some point or something, and they'll it seems like a common theme where they'll say, revisit something they did in the past and then just make it better. For example, it was with Gibson Long with the changeup. Even guys that are doing now, like that's why you don't look at the box score when it comes to certain things, like with Manning, for example, him throwing the cutter at the development. But even like a guy like Dylan Smith was one thing that I was watching during his sequencing is that he, in terms of like there was a plan of attack against right-handers, fastball inside, jam. Then he threw that curveball away. There's a some familiarity. Well, I can't talk. Yeah, I said that right. There is a plan of attack when it comes to pitchers, and whether Gabe, and I love the one person I love to talk to is Gabe Rivas, because I think Gabe Rivas has a lot to do with this pitching design, because it just even like a guy like Matt Sillinger, who's 30 years old. Look, this guy's not a prospect, but he's up in Toledo. He's put up really good strikeout numbers. And the one consistent pitch he throws a lot is his curveball. It's a curveball. It's an old, like in the fastball, plays up with it. He changes eye levels really well. Is he a dude? No, but he's damn interesting, because the reason why he's interesting is because his numbers at Reading, when he was with the Philly system, night and day, comparatively speaking, when he was in Erie. Like the strikeout numbers are very different than when so whatever the Tigers are doing to tweak these things a little bit, there's a certain change. It doesn't work for everybody. I'm not saying they're like doing this. They're like,
it's magic.
Yeah, it's not magic. It's not like like this. You can pitch now. Like Sunday. That's a horrible Sunday gospel example, but you get my drift. It's not like this works for everybody. But if you're making Matt Sillinger a guy that can be serviceable at some point for you, I mean, hey,
and you see it all the way down, and in one aspect, which is just like that every team talks like this, but they're not really about process over results. The Tigers really, really seem to be like they will just let you suck if you're doing the thing that they want you to do.
Yeah,
and kind of lean into it, because I've always used the base stealing example. Like every spring, every manager talks to the media about how we're going to run the bases aggressively, we're going to take the extra base, blah 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 blah, and then one guy gets thrown out in the base pass. Everybody gets tight. Maybe the manager says the wrong thing and brings it up rather than telling them, no, just stay aggressive, let it go. We'll make it work as we do this. You'll start to moderate, but you have to go with that speed, to learn how to do it. And everybody talks that game, and most of them don't back it up. Guys get tight. Managers maybe are embarrassed because, their players screwing up too much. They're afraid of how these things look. The Tigers seem to have that all sorted out between them, where everyone is on the same page more than most teams. Everyone knows what the plan is. And if the plan isn't working, they'll stick with it, because they're not just trying to win the game. They're trying to get you to do this one thing.
Right.
They just seem to have like culturally from top to bottom, a lot more buy-in than, certainly we've ever seen here before, but I'm betting most teams in that regard. So yeah, it's all coming together, and there's a lot to it, from the analysts all the way to the coaches and the players themselves. But there is sort of a philosophy of development that's got in there and seems to kind of have superseded the usual, we can't, we could try these things, but we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to look bad. We don't, the Tigers seem to be pushing that, and it seems to be working all throughout the system.
Yeah. And there's a reason why Daniel Cabrera's on the restricted list. If you want to do it, sorry.
Yeah. Do what we tell you to do, and just lean into it, or you're not going to play, or we're just going to let you go, even though, maybe you're a better looking prospect than some guy we kept. We've seen some examples of that too, where it was just like,
Gage Workman.
You're not as coachable as we need you to be. And yeah, I mean, maybe they would have liked to have kept Gage Workman. Maybe they didn't really care at all. But it took him way too long to kind of bow to the to the dictums from the front office and his coaches. And I don't know if that got him in the doghouse long term, or if it's just that. I mean, he's not really that good. But
Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, if you don't do what they tell you, they're gonna kind of just blackball you. It looks like.
I mean, remember he was on the restricted list at one point too. He was on the hot and ready list, as they call it.
That's true.
So it's easy to forget that, but he was picked up by the White Sox. So he still has a chance to end up in Detroit.
Best of luck.
Yeah, best of luck. Yeah,
and
it's funny. They designated for assignment Nick Maton.
Yep.
This is how different the culture is right now, ladies and gentlemen, here in Detroit, where maybe 5 or 6 years ago these guys would still have jobs, but they don't. So it is what it is. But any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we get out of here? Because the Tigers right now are down 8-5 in the top of the ninth right now. Diggler with the double to the left. Nice. Yeah. All right. So
I mean, my only thought is, this is a long road trip. They're in a really long block of games without many days off. I just want to see them have a 500 road trip and come back home, and hopefully guys are getting healthy by then. And then, we'll take it from there. But I mean, it is like the Angels and the Rockies after this. Like they probably should have a pretty good road trip. So
the Rockies have not won 5 games yet, gentlemen. They're 4-24 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we got through the real hard part of the early schedule. So yeah, hopefully they can hang in there through this road trip and not fall on their faces, and then we'll go from there.
And we haven't really seen them have this game this year where they kind of, I don't know, it's not completely over, but they're down to their final out. They kind of pissed this one away with some bad defense, and Flaherty gave up a couple home runs, but they don't stop. That they kept battling. So it was 8-3, and now it's 8-5, and you're in striking distance. So I don't know, but go out there and play solid on the West Coast. Continue doing what you're doing, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not worried about it. But we'll be on Bryce Rayner watch. We'll be watching the rest of the minor league system this week. But 2 teams in first place with big run differentials. Tigers in first place. Gentlemen, this is probably, like I said, this is a good time. Again, it's heading into May, and I will take it. So, yeah,
we want to get to 40 games, but
the Sparky Anderson 40 game guarantee. There you go. So stay close, everybody. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.